Welcome back. You're watching a business. I am. My name is Simba. Elijah Charles. Can't get this is your official sector trends this morning, where we're telling you exactly what is trending in other sectors and industries in the economy as you wake up to your morning today. Well, so let's say you have a business, quite savvy, but you do not get willing investors to partner with you. The question you keep on asking yourself is, what the problem is or where you are going wrong. Well, but today we'll help you understand all that, and most importantly, how you can position yourself to attract an investor, and an investor that will last long in your business by having a good investment strategy in place. Joining us this morning is Diana Gichaga, who is the managing partner at a private equity support. Diana, good morning.
Good morning, and a pleasure to be with you in studio today.
Happy to have you around. All right, let's tackle that part. Now, Diana, as an enterprise support advisory consulting firm, tell us more on what you do as an advisory firm when it comes to matters investment. Let's begin from there.
Thank you for that question. And I know when someone says enterprise support advisory firm, it does sound like a mouthful, but very simply what we do is we support access to finance for small and medium enterprises in sub-Saharan Africa. So what does that mean? Essentially, we help SMEs prepare to raise finance or prepare to develop sustainable growth strategy. On the other hand, we work with investors who are looking for SMEs to invest in sub-Saharan Africa. So we help them identify these SMEs, prepare these SMEs, and between these two parties, we like to think that we are helping with access to finance to SMEs within sub-Saharan Africa.
Yes.
Yes.
Diana, it's a very important discussion that you're starting there. Would you say that this is one of the biggest challenges for MSMEs in Africa as well, that positioning themselves properly to access finance? Can I ask, is this finance available? And if it's available, then what is missing?
Okay, based on our experience, and we've worked across 117 SMEs across 17 countries in Africa. And one of the things that we've noticed is, particular for the SME sector, it doesn't really matter the size, whether it's a small enterprise or a large enterprise. The challenges are critically that the SME does not get of finance. And we always make a joke. When you decide to go on a trip, you will check your car, you will check the tires, you'll check the brake fluid, but you'll be amazed how many people start the process of capital raising without actually doing the same internally for their businesses. So yes, the biggest challenge has been what we call investor readiness. Yes. Getting yourself or your ducks in a row, as you'd like to say. Yes.
Is the informality aspect of this sector across Africa also the biggest impediment to it positioning itself properly for access to finance, and also investors would say that?
I'd say the informality is not necessarily a challenge, because this is what allows SMEs to be flexible and to be able to take advantage of some of the opportunities that come their way much faster than what a structured corporate would do. Yes. However, on the flip side is a lot of these important steps that SMEs take, such as researching for their strategy, especially say family businesses, they'll meet over the dining table, have a meeting to discuss what they think the business should do, but it's not documented. So what they don't realize is an investor is an external party. The only way that they can verify that something has actually happened is by getting documentation to prove it. If you tell me you have board meetings, I'd like to see at least one copy of board minutes.
Yes.
If you tell me that you have an accountant, the least I'd expect is to have your management accounts ready for me to view as an investor, and even properly audited accounts. So I'd say the lack of documentation of some of these processes makes the SMEs get perceived as more risky, when in actuality, for some of them, really, they do have these processes. It's just that they've not documented them or put them in a format that the investor is able to verify that certain steps are actually taken within a business. And then this is where the disconnect starts. Yes.
Diana, are we therefore saying that we have a different definition of what an informal business would be? Is not documenting and sort of positioning your history and also putting your history together and any other thing that you do in your business, formalizing that business?
Yes. Exactly. So one of the things we say about investor readiness is first taking a step back and saying, if I want to go to point A, from point A to B, it's
Yes.
about understanding first and foremost, how is my business structured to take advantage of that opportunity? And when you're looking at how the business is structured, you're also thinking about how much money do I really need, capital resources. But in addition to that, you also need to think about the human resource. What sort of skill set do I need to get from point A to B, which is where I believe growth will be? And in addition to that, the physical assets. But one of the key things that we say most entrepreneurs, founders, or family businesses struggle with is as your business grows, the skill sets that it requires at point B or point C changes. People tend to have an outward looking mechanism. They don't look at themselves as the CEO or the founders and say, if this is where I want to grow my business, do I have the skill set to take it from point A to B? And if not, can I at least take it halfway and then start cultivating some sort of process to be able to develop that skill set? And the reason we say this is you don't want to have this conversation when there's an investor across the table.
Yes.
Ideally, if you want to communicate confidence and to an investor or communicate that you really understand what makes your business tick, then ideally an investor wants to get the comfort that you have thought through the process, you've understood what is required, not only from a financial skill set perspective, and you as a founder know you're able to take the business from point A to B. Allow me to just give a very quick example to make this clear. We are all drivers, right? There are those of us who don't drive well during traffic jams. And, so think of your company as a really well, and you want to get from here to Mombasa. Maybe as a founder, the good part that you can drive is Mombasa Road initially because it's simple, it's straight. But when it comes to at night, you neither have the patience or you cannot see. Let someone else take over. Remember, leading is not necessarily about being in the driver's seat. As a friend of mine, Patrick, likes to say, you can be in the co-driver's seat, shouting instructions, and people actually follow. So the same way the business, when you're thinking about getting and engaging investors, think about the human resource and the skill set required. Think about the capital you require, what format you require it in, how much. Because the other thing that businesses tend to do is you ask for so much capital. Think again with the example of the car. If you're going to fuel and you're getting the fuel on credit, we will say fill the tank. But some founders, what they do is the equivalent of saying fill in these extra drams of fuel, put them on top of my car. So already the car has excess fuel, but really what is actually working for the car, it is the fuel in the car. So all this fuel on top, think about it as extra capital. As you're driving, it's splishing, it's sploshing, it's evaporating. You'll meet someone along the way who's stuck, maybe you give them, so you misuse your capital. But don't forget that you had paid for all this funding that you got. There's a return expected.
Yes.
So that's what happens is you end up overfunded and you're unable to create the value in your business and give the investors the return they require. Very simply put.
But pretty much. Well, I want us to talk about a concept which I know you're quite synonymous with, Diana, especially in your space, bootstrapping. I mean, can we demystify that? And why do most businesses just say, well, let's take that direction?
Okay, so one of the things I'll say is the reason why most businesses tend to struggle with this process
Yes.
is if you think about it, an SME is usually trying to make sure that it's able to meet its financial needs on a day-to-day basis. It's a struggle. It's about trying to ensure there's money coming in the business, you're taking advantage of the opportunities that are coming across. So some of the challenges that an SME faces, then there's no time to really step back and actually think, what is the proper path for my business? You'll turn, look at your competitor and say, oh, okay, maybe I like what he's doing, so let us try and do that, without necessarily taking time to understand as a business, really, what are my core strengths as a business? What are the unique things that have managed to get me from point A to B? And that ability of saying, I want to be the next Safaricom, I want to be the next YouTube against a certain brand, but you also have to look realistically and start to say, within my sector, the way it is structured, is it possible for my business to grow in this particular way? Because remember, you're not operating in a vacuum, you're operating within a macroeconomic environment. So say, for example, we had an SME Economic Outlook Forum earlier this year. And one of the areas we were saying was, which sectors are going to perform well? So one of the things we always tell a business is, think about it in two ways. Is my sector going to perform well this year? If I'm in tourism and in hospitality, I have these rooms that 100 keys, and they're still, even when I shut the light, they're still running an operational cost that are going to occur in that business. When I say I want to grow by X%, or I want to open up the things that look at the travel, the people coming. What is the cost of me hosting those people?
Yes.
Because I have to incur extra costs. So about understanding that, and then critically looking and saying, as opposed to maybe waiting for that customer from UAE or that client from Europe, can I do something because I already have the asset? Who is here and readily available to actually come in and use my room? So it's about, as a business, looking outside, what does the macroeconomy portend? Looking internally and saying, what can I be able to do? Because there's no need of opening and saying you're running a business and you're not even meeting your basic overheads. So in the context of what we are talking about, that is a conversation that most people don't tend to go through in detail with their teams, so that by the time you're meeting, asking you, you're telling me you want to grow by 5%, and yet in your sector, we can see the negative growth. What are you doing different that your sector is not? So those are some of the things I'll say are some of the challenges, yes.
What do investors look for in a business? Somebody's going to ask you that question, Diana, that, well, yeah, you're saying that, well, all these things, the only businesses that we might have a record straight, everything that we do is right, but what are they looking for?
That's interesting. It's as equivalent of saying, what do women want? Some questions are really that very interesting, but I digress. I would say what do men want. But yes, the key thing when you're talking about what do investors want is to understand, when you talk about an investor, who are you talking about?
Yes.
We have different types of investors. There are investors who come and give you debt and they have security. They're not really interested in the day-to-day running of your business. So long as you're able to make the payments, if you didn't use the funding for what you raised the funding for, yes, it is neither here or there for them. Their issue is, can you pay me? And if you don't pay me, can of the typical lenders, maybe. Then we have these other lenders where people, and this is where it gets murky. When people talk about impact investing, venture capital, private equity, in this segment, remember, they have borrowed money. It's the same way the bank will take from you, give you probably 1% return, but lend it at 14%.
Yes.
Because it's not their money. These investors in private equity, impact investing, venture capital have done the same. The only thing is the cost of their money is different. So they've promised investors, I am going to. So when they're looking for a deal, they have that at the back of their mind. This enterprise is within the sectors that I am allowed to invest in. That's why you'll find when people say, oh, but investors were not investing last year during COVID, the actual fact is they cannot wake up, especially in private equity, and go and change. They've locked in a 5-year, 6-year, 10-year strategy to do education. So unless for some certain reason, and this is a process that would take time, they cannot then come and say, oh, we've stopped education, we're now going to healthcare. They're in that sector with you until the wheels come off. So investors will only look for those companies in the sectors where they have mandate to invest. Two, from an entrepreneur perspective, they want to get comfort in terms of the business itself.
Yes.
What's a business model? Does it make sense? Does it make money? As one person said, I think it's Chris Kirubi who was attributed to this, you could rock a horse, lots of vigorous action, but at the end of the day, you've not moved. So one of the things that most entrepreneurs need to understand is what's the value your business is creating. It's not just about margins, it's about, can you scale this business? If I'm in Nairobi, can I go to Kisumu? Can I go to Nakuru? Can I go to Uganda? Or even across Africa. So they want businesses that create value and can scale. Secondly, they're looking for the team horse. But if the jockey faces backwards, that horse is not going to go anywhere. It's just, it's a perfect horse, but the jockey is a problem. So the investors will really focus on the team, especially in the SME sector, because they want to know, do you have capacity to deliver? I can talk very well. You talk very well. At the end of the day, whatever we say, what matters is, can we execute on the ground? And that's what distinguishes good companies from great companies. And then the other thing to remember is, if it's a private equity impact investor, they're with you for a short-term, very intensive marriage. They've come in with the exit in mind, right? It's almost like having a prenuptial agreement. Your business needs to grow. I will come, as opposed to you waiting 10 years to be getting $1 million today, $1 million next year, $1 million the other year. I will give you this 10 million, this 100 million all at once. But what we will do, we will work your company, the work it would have taken in 10 years, we're going to try and shorten that into a period of 6, 7 years and try and bring that growth. But at the end of the day, because it's not my money, I owe someone a return, I need to exit. And that's why you'll find most companies, they'll say, but my business is good, it's excellent, I have a great team. The investor says, I love your business, I love what you've done. But when I give you the money, who's going to give it back to me? Are you going to buy back the shares that I've invested in? Or am I going to sell you to a strategic investor? And that's why the other thing they need to know is they come in with the exit in mind. So those are the things that they're looking for. So a good business model, one that can scale, meaning it can be applied and replicated in a larger regional forum.
Yes.
And 3, a very good team. And 4, ability to exit, because they're coming in to give you patient capital, but they've promised people a return. And beyond a certain number of years, the return now starts to head south. So that's why there's always pressure for, and that's important for people to understand.
Diana, smaller businesses within the country actually account for more than 80% of the employment numbers within the country. And so you like to think that this is where the chances are for even a private equity. Can you talk to me about what the effects of the pandemic has been on the outlook for private equity in 2021?
Okay, that's a very good point. And I like the way you brought it out. Majority of the businesses are actually small.
Yes.
So the first thing I always say is, not every business is ready for private equity. That's something we need to understand. The same way private equity investors understand that not every SME is for them.
Yes.
The size of the business will generally dictate what sort of funders that they are able to. So likely what they look for is impact funding and I'd say venture capital funding, depending on what sort of sector they are in. But I like your question. 80% are very small. And when we did an internal survey as private equity support, we asked our investors, where do you feel majority of the deals are? And they said, honestly, Diana, it's investments below $1 million, because most of the investors are saying we invest between, say, 750,000 going up. And there was an East Africa Venture Capital Association survey and research that they do with KPMG, where they said majority of the investors are in 2 buckets, between $1 million to $4 million, and then from there on we have $7 million. But if majority of the businesses cannot absorb $1 million, is 100 million Kenya shillings. If they say most of the deals are below that 1 million, then we ask them, then why aren't you investing? One of the things they said was, it's a challenge of one, the cost of due diligence in this business, basically verifying this business. Because if I have to invest 500,000, I need to be able to ensure that I have as minimal cost as possible. Again, using the example of the car. If I'm giving you $500,000, I don't want to spend 50,000 trying to verify whether your information is correct, paying consultants because your documentation is all over the place, as opposed to taking 2 weeks to do due diligence. We've taken 7 weeks to do due diligence. So the challenge they have is it's very expensive for them to justify doing smaller investments because of the cost of doing those investments. And then the other thing that they struggle with is when they want to grow that business, it'll take a lot of hands-on support, because to grow a business, give it 500,000 and scale, in theory, it looks very simple, but there's a lot of operational financial support that that business needs that most investors say the business might not have the skill set to do. So in a COVID situation, what happened? A lot of these investors, what they did was go back to the existing companies they've invested in and said, let's help fix this once. Let's help our portfolio survive this period. So it's not that they stopped investing because of COVID, it's that they had bigger things, the bird in hand was burning. I cannot go to look for other birds if the bird in hand is burning. So when you think about it from that perspective, you think about what was the impact of COVID on some of these businesses. They had to grow, they needed funding, that funding has not gone away. So what does 2021 look like? Investors will still invest. They have, remember, they have a short period within which to invest. They have pressure to deploy, as we call it. So we are likely to see more deals start to happen in terms of the process. The challenge will be, as an investor, I want to get the best company for the best value, meaning low. As an entrepreneur, I want to sell my company for the best value, meaning high. So what you'll find is the investor will like the business will like the investor, but they're likely to have issues on money, agreeing on valuation of the business, because as an investor, I'll point and say, hey, 2020, you went like this. An entrepreneur, I'll say, but look at what I did in 2019. I was like this. It was not for factors that of my own doing that my company was not doing as well. So what we'll find as an outlook for investment is lots of activity, lots of transactions in progress, but whether or not they close will really depend on whether they can come together or meet on the valuation aspects.
Pretty much. Then as we clear this morning, we only have 45 seconds left. Somebody walked to you this morning, says, I've listened to you, I've got my records, I think I'm ready to grow. I want you to walk me through the journey. What is the promise that you give to them as a private equity support?
Okay, so for 45 seconds, this is very easy for me to do. You can tell that fundraising is something I can do. I think I have 30 seconds left. So for a business, what I'd say, analyze what your growth path is. What is it that you're trying to achieve? Understand how much money you want to, you need as a business to implement this growth strategy. Understand what type it needs to be. And when we talk about type, think just about two. Are you able to make interest payments? Then yes, please go for debt. Do you have cash flow issues or challenges? Then go for patient capital or equity. Remember, don't take more money than you need. Your business has not stopped generating revenue. So what you do, let the investors' money come and do the heavy lifting. And that's what I always say. Investor money is very expensive money. Let it work for your business. Let it sweat for your business. So let it do the heavy lifting or address those aspects where it will take you long within your business to support. Then once you've decided how much you do, please don't look into every investor. Reach out to the EAVCA, find out which investor is looking in your sector, willing to write the ticket size, that's the amount for investment, where you need the money. And then remember, this is someone you need to be with for 4 or 5 years. So look at what else are they bringing other than money. Connections, networks, access to markets. And then the critical question, do you get along? Yes, it's important. If things hit the roof, is this someone you're willing to run to and say, help me think this through? Or is this someone you'd rather just keep aside and try and sort it yourself? And once you've identified that, Start to engage them early. Please, the power of negotiation is on your side if you have time. Don't come when your house is on fire. Start the process. It never hurts. You get to understand the market, who's for you and who's a likely candidate, and that gives you negotiation power. I think I did 50 seconds.
Yes, pretty much. Diana, Managing Partner Private Equity Support, thank you very much for joining us this morning here on a Metropole Television. It's been quite a learning experience.
Thank you very much for having us, and please keep doing the business you're doing, because I think investors and also SMEs need the information that you're availing to the market. So congratulations to the team.
Thank you very much. On that note, we take a short break here on a business, and once we come back, our official economic review. Top on that, where is our debt trend? Headed to IMF has given us the money that we required as back as early as 2020. Once we come back.